Let's get started, everybody. The battles have been taking place over President Trump's huge spending bill. The criticism is the spending, especially when some Senate Republicans get involved and even Elon Musk. Now, it barely passed the House. We have a Republican who voted against it initially in committee before eventually passing it and getting it through by one vote. It is Lancaster County Congressman Lloyd Smucker. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Good to be with you, Joel.
All right, so we know it did pass the House barely. It got through. This week, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have been very publicly feuding about all this. Trump says this is a great bill, has to get through. This is what people voted for. Musk and some others say the spending is the big problem. So, sometimes I'll default to the Bipartisan Congressional Budget Office. It says the bill would increase deficits by $2.4 trillion over 10 years and leave more than 10 million people without health insurance. What do you say when you hear those numbers come in from the CBO?
Well, let's go back to what this bill was about. It was about ensuring that we extend the tax cuts, the tax rates that have existed since we passed them in 2017. If we do not extend those rates by the end of this year, you will see a massive tax increase for every American household, for every small business. In fact, it would be the largest tax increase in our history. So that's number one. And then secondly, it provides additional funding to secure the border, which is a key component of the mandate that the American people gave us in this last November election. It ensures our military has the equipment and tools to ensure Americans' safety, and it would unleash American energy. That's the big pieces. There's a lot of other great things in this bill. And so in terms of what Musk is talking about, I really don't exactly understand what he is saying, because the key component, as I mentioned, of this bill is tax cuts. There's not a lot of spending in this bill. In fact, we are providing spending relief. One of my requirements to support this bill was to ensure that it does not add to the debt, and it will not, and I'll explain that. But a part of that was that we would have $1.7 trillion, the highest ever for a reconciliation bill, in reduction in spending over the next 10 years.
So how does the CBO get it so wrong then, if their numbers are drastically different from what you're saying? Because everything you're saying, I think, is the kind of stuff people do think that they voted for. But then when they hear that this is not going to turn out that way, it starts turning them off.
CBO looks at this from a static perspective. They do not consider the growth that we will see from having good tax policy in place, which will be similar to what we saw after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The Budget Committee, when we put together the resolution for the bill, assumed that we would have less growth, a very conservative number, 2.6% growth on average over the next 10 years, which is less than we saw the next few years after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. If we achieve that number, we will more than pay for this bill. In fact, we will reduce the debt going forward.
What's the number you're looking at, 3 or 3.5?
I'm sorry?
What do we need then, 3 or 3.5? Like, how big will we need?
$2.5 trillion. We'll cover $2.5 trillion in costs due to the tax cuts with additional growth. That's what we've assumed in our bill. I'm confident we're going to get that. We're going to get it through the tax policy. We're going to get it through the deregulation, the energy policy that are included in this bill. We're going to see strong economic growth, much higher than what CBO is projecting. And that's based on what we've seen after we put these tax rates in effect in the first place.
All right, so growth is definitely a big piece of that, and I hear how you're a little more optimistic than they are, and that would make up some of the difference. But some of your Republican colleagues, you have Josh Hawley, you have some others, they're very concerned about the Medicaid cuts, and that's the other part of what the CBO was looking at, how many people would lose health care coverage because of some things that people do agree on. It's regulations, it's work things like that. So how do you get those folks on board who are so concerned about how many people would be, off of Medicaid and things like that?
Well, our Energy and Commerce Committee did a very good job of ensuring that we are looking at ways to reduce the waste and fraud in these programs. Number one, we want Medicaid to be available to those who need it, to the vulnerable. Every member of Congress wants to ensure that continues. It should not be available for people who are here in our country illegally. That saves a lot of money. It should not be available if someone is able to work and they choose not to work by choice. That will save a lot of money because we've added work requirements into our Medicaid program with this bill and into the SNAP program. Just those two changes. There's several other changes as well, but just those two will change billions of dollars. Then remember something else. Medicaid at this point is expected to grow to over 1 trillion. Currently, the federal government is reimbursing states about 660 billion annually. That is projected to grow to $1 trillion in the next 10 years. We're just simply reducing that growth number. We're not cutting Medicaid at all. We are ensuring that we're rooting out the waste and fraud. We're rooting out Medicaid that is going to people who shouldn't be getting it, that the American people will agree with. Every dollar that we save there ensures that Medicaid will stay structurally sound to really provide for those who are vulnerable and who need
All right,
it.
we'll see if they can hash it out. I got less than a minute left here. If they change a lot in terms of the Senate, I mean, can you still vote for this? Because overall, it would still be getting through.
I've made it very clear from the beginning, I want this bill to be paid for. We cannot add to the debt with this bill. There's a group of 30 or 40 who have said we have to have the savings of at least 1.6 trillion in the bill. That's currently in the bill. That's a framework that we worked very hard in the House to achieve. It's got to come back within that framework. A deviation from that would mean that there's a lot of folks on our side who cannot vote for the bill. Okay. But I don't think that'll happen. The Senate will maybe improve. Maybe they'll even find more savings in this bill. They'll find areas to change it, but I think they'll stay within that framework. And if they do so, I think they will. I think they'll have this done in the next few weeks, and hopefully we have this to the president's desk by July 4th.
Okay, we shall see. Thanks for making it clear where your side's coming from on some of this stuff. We want to cut through the noise, and you're helping us do that. Congressman Lloyd Smucker, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.